Your roadmap to the latest in auto. Welcome to Highway Herald. The nickel tariff war of 2025 has erupted into one of the fiercest battles in automotive history. A 20 to 30% duty on EV metals, nickel at the heart, shook Detroit's battery belt, spiked prices, and rattled forecasts. Canada, once America's steady supplier, struck back with precision, rerouting exports to Europe and Asia while strengthening its own industry. Yet whispers of exemptions linger, hinting at an uneasy compromise ahead. Nickel tariffs break Detroit's supply chain. For decades, Canadian nickel quietly powered America's EV revolution, flowing from Sudbury's mines to Detroit's cathode plants. By 2024, $3.9 billion worth of nickel fed Tesla's Model Y batteries and GM's Ultium packs. But in August 2025, Washington imposed tariffs of up to 30%, not only on China but Canada too, shocking Detroit's supply chain. The numbers were devastating. Each SUV battery using NMC 811 chemistry required about 38 kilograms of nickel, costing $775 before tariffs. The new duty added $250 per pack, slashing GM's margins from 10% to under 8.5%. Multiplied across hundreds of thousands of vehicles, billions evaporated from forecasts. Consumers felt it too. Analysts warned of nearly 100,000 lost EV sales in 2026. Ford's F-150 Lightning, once projected at $67,500, could now hit $72,500, shifting EVs from accessible to luxury status. Gasoline trucks regained value appeal, and investors grew uneasy about EV expansion in Michigan. A policy meant to safeguard jobs instead cornered Detroit, transforming nickel from lifeline to choke point. And as Detroit's struggles deepened, Canada wasn't standing idle. It was already crafting a plan to flip the narrative. Ottawa's calculated counterattack. Canada responded to U.S. tariffs with a calculated strategy rather than fiery rhetoric. In July 2025, Ottawa rolled out a four-part plan: a 15% export tax on raw nickel, forcing U.S. cathode makers to lose duty-free access, a carbon tracking system that prioritized low-emission Ontario nickel while diverting dirtier ores abroad, $257 million Canadian dollars to accelerate LFP battery production, reducing reliance on nickel, and tax incentives securing Stellantis LG's Windsor Gigafactory. The Canadian Expenditure Office projected these measures could redirect nearly $2 billion in trade toward South Korea and the EU by 2027. Prime Minister Mark Carney reinforced the approach with a $5 billion Canadian Buy Canadian program, declaring nickel and cobalt Canada's new diamonds. The impact was swift. Nickel sulfate exports jumped 23% in early 2025, with U.S. share declining as Germany and South Korea struck fresh contracts for green nickel. Ottawa's response wasn't mere retaliation. It was a blueprint for decoupling, ensuring Canada's autonomy and stronger global leverage. Before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button here on Highway Herald. Your support helps us bring you in-depth stories from the world of autos, trade, and technology. But while Canada tightened its grip, another storm loomed for U.S. automakers: carbon penalties that threatened their global competitiveness. Carbon costs and the global game. While tariffs hammered Detroit, another challenge loomed: carbon penalties. Beginning in 2026, the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM, will impose fees of €115 per ton of CO2 in imports. For U.S. automakers sourcing nickel from Indonesia or the Philippines, the cost impact could be severe. The emissions gap is stark. Ontario's hydro-refined nickel produces only 4.2 tons of CO2 per ton, while Indonesian laterite nickel generates 36 tons and Chinese nickel about 18. Every EV built on dirty nickel and shipped to Europe could face hundreds of euros in extra costs. For GM and Ford, already squeezed on margins, this threatens competitiveness in Europe, one of the world's fastest-growing EV markets. Canada, however, is capitalizing by signing clean nickel supply deals with Germany and South Korea that bypass CBAM penalties. With geopolitics adding pressure, Russia's war, Indonesia's environmental baggage, and China's refining dominance, the U.S. risks losing ground. Detroit now faces a lose-lose scenario, while Canada emerges the cleaner, smarter supplier. Just as Detroit looked cornered, however, Washington introduced a surprising twist: exemptions that could change the game. Tariff whiplash, exemptions on the horizon. As tensions peaked in September 2025, Trump signed an executive order granting tariff exemptions for aligned partners under reciprocal trade frameworks, nickel included. For Canada, it wasn't a win yet, but the possibility of relief emerged. Under Section 232, U.S. officials can waive tariffs for allies, with Japan and the EU named. But Canada, despite being America's second-largest trade partner, still needed to secure its place. Prime Minister Mark Carney quickly responded, waiving Canada's 20% EV mandate for 2026 to ease automaker pressure, and launching a $5 billion Canadian support fund for affected industries. With over 85% of bilateral trade already tariff-free under USMCA, exemptions could restore Detroit's critical battery lifeline. Still, uncertainty remains. Without U.S. approval, Canada is redirecting nickel to Europe and South Korea, reshaping global supply lines. Wall Street places a 60% chance on a deal, with predictions of either full exemptions or reduced tariffs. Automakers, already cutting forecasts, warn that without clarity soon, Detroit's EV future hangs in the balance. Whether exemptions arrive or not, one truth is undeniable. Nickel itself has become the centerpiece of a global power play. The nickel endgame, a global power play. Nickel is no longer just an industrial metal, it's now a geopolitical power play, and Canada holds the advantage. By securing new contracts with Seoul and Hamburg, Ottawa has diversified its buyers and cemented itself as a trusted global supplier. Europe, desperate for clean minerals, is turning to Ontario's hydro-powered nickel, while South Korea has increased imports by nearly 20% since spring. Canada's message is clear. It isn't waiting for Washington's approval, it's moving forward. Nickel's unique qualities heighten its leverage. Light to ship but indispensable in EVs, aerospace, and defense, it commands over $20,000 per ton. As Canada Nickel Company's CEO put it, "If the US doesn't want our nickel, Europe can take every ounce." The warning carries weight. Each jet engine consumes up to 3 tons of nickel, making supply a security issue. Meanwhile, US EV ambitions wobble under tariffs and rising costs, threatening adoption rates. Canada has turned nickel into a global bargaining chip, while America risks losing ground. Verdict: the nickel gambit. Canada moves ahead, US at a crossroads. What began as a tariff wall to protect American jobs has backfired. Instead of shielding Detroit, it raised costs, cut EV sales, and shook Motor City's foundations. Canada didn't retreat. It doubled down, diversified partners, and turned clean nickel into both shield and weapon. Now, with exemptions on the table, Washington faces a pivotal choice: recalibrate policy and restore the EV lifeline, or cling to protectionism and risk ceding ground to Europe and Asia. Minerals once buried underground now dictate industries, alliances, and climate goals. What do you think? Should the US grant Canada full tariff exemptions? Has Canada outmaneuvered Washington in the nickel game? And will these clashes reshape EV adoption for everyday drivers? Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love reading your takes and debating these big shifts with fellow enthusiasts. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to Highway Herald and hit that notification bell so you're first in line for the next update on vehicles, trade wars, and the shifting gears of the global auto industry. Thanks for watching and see you next time. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's more exciting and informative content waiting for you.